All right, everybody, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. I have the brother David on with us all the way from the UK, from Great Britain. And today's topic is, how does Boris Johnson being elected UK Prime Minister affect Black Brits? Now, shout out to My Name is Jade. My name is Jade. I'm gonna send you a link here shortly. So per some of the feedback I've been getting is that Boris Johnson is the UK version of Donald Trump. Is that correct?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. But for all intensive purposes, yeah, he's kind of like a UK version of Trump. Just a little background on him, not nothing, too detailed, but things that I think as Black people we should definitely kind of know and be aware of, which is Boris is he started his career as a journalist for a very small local paper. I just want it to be known he was fired after a few months of working at this small local paper for making up quotes, something which he would later do again when he was working for a larger, more international national paper. He he didn't just kind of just get fired though and then start something new. He used his connections because he went to the kind of typical private schools that make up most of the people in parliament, like the super wealthy posh kids. He used his connections to get a job at the Daily Telegraph following him getting fired from his local paper. But even when he was working at the Telegraph, he was like called out by a lot of his like peers for being like, to be honest with you, hang on, what's the quote? Okay, a former Conservative leader, Chris Patton, said that he was one of the greatest exponents of fake journalism. So people have always had questions about what he said in the media, all that type of stuff. Known for his sensationalism. That's one big thing I'll link him with Trump with. Trump is a sensational, populist type of guy. And so is Boris Johnson to some effect. He's previously gone to ex-colony empire places and sang colonial songs. He was leading off the Brexit stuff. And truth be told, the biggest difference between him and Trump is he inherited a lot of his position through kind of being one of those posh people at the top, working in media and then getting in good with like the Conservative Party, doing all that type of stuff there. Whereas Trump's a businessman. Even if he has ran some of his businesses into the ground, and even if he did start off with money, Trump is a businessman nonetheless. And I guess that's a distinctive difference between the two. But in terms of what the difference between Boris Johnson and Theresa May is going to be, I don't think in terms of mentality they're any different. I don't think actually I don't really see Boris as like this big thing to fear. And yeah, it is similar to how those of us who think a little bit outside of the typical political spectrum, especially us Black ones who are kind of about our knowledge and what have you, we're not looking at Trump with all the same fear as everybody else. I don't look at Boris with the same fear as everybody else. I think, to be honest with you, if Boris came out and said he's going to do something tangible for Black people that we could really actually rock with, he actually said and brought something out, blah blah blah, then it I'm not going to sit there and ignore it just because it's Boris. Like I don't really care whether it's Theresa May, Boris, or Jeremy Corbyn and all these lot on the left. I don't particularly kind of really give a damn about the political spectrum, because trying to align yourself, in my opinion, trying to be Black and align yourself to the political left, that's not all of who we are. The same way, aligning yourself with the political right, that's not really 100% who we are. Everybody says like, oh, you're Black, you should be a leftist. I mean, I agree with some things, I don't agree with some things. It's the same with the right. But for me, I simply look at who is going to really actually give us something. But ultimately, Boris is no different to the rest of them. Theresa May made a really big, splash with the Windrush scandal.
Right.
She had people who showed up in this country in the 1950s, the late 40s, the 1960s, before anything. She had them getting deported. these people were accumulating council tax. They were losing their jobs. They had bills, and a lot of them also were elderly people who were dying.
Oh wow.
I don't see how Boris is going to come out the woodwork, and I don't get me wrong, he definitely could make it worse, but I don't think he's going to think up a new scheme that is going to supersede the hostile environment as it is known by Theresa May's, conservative reign. I have to admit, aside from him being a bit stupid and him being very ignorant towards black people in general, I don't really see it as being anything new, especially not from his party, not from the Conservative Party. That's the equivalent of the Republicans. And even though, not all Democrats or the Democratic Party as a whole hasn't exactly made itself, friends of the black community in the past couple of years, they've not held out the proper olive branches and garnered the correct support. But it's like, I mean, look, to me, I'll be brutally honest. I think they're all the same. And Boris ain't no different than what we were going to get served up anyway. I think that what people, especially black people, I think we wanted someone to be nice to us and to smile in our face and lie.
Right.
To be honest with you, at least Boris going to tell the truth-ish. He's going to be stupid. He's going to be ignorant. But hell, he's telling us the truth. That's the fucking best thing we could ever have.
Right. Let me ask you this. First of all, guys, my T-shirt is compliments of my sister Kai, my Togolese sister. She's actually in the UK, and you can purchase the shirt at it's French. Mansion, Maison, Mocha, Maison, Mocha, MOKA.co.uk. I will put the link in the chat room. So that's where you could purchase this T-shirt at. So shout out to Kai for the shirt.
Shout out to her. That's a sick shirt.
Now was there a vote done that elected? That's where I'm kind of confused at.
That's something that's quite funny actually. Is no, Boris Johnson wasn't voted in by the public. Basically, because Theresa May was prime minister, but she resigned from her job, the rule is that someone from within her party, the Conservatives, like someone had to come forward to replace her.
Okay, that's right. She was okay. So give us a backstory on her, I guess, resigning or being.
Oh wow. Well, she came in after David Cameron resigned when the Brexit vote came in. David Cameron, who is he's a fucking idiot as well, to be honest with you. He's another one I can't stand. Like him, Theresa, all of them, like, they're all fools anyway. But he let the Brexit vote happen. He lost the Brexit vote. He wanted us to stay in the EU. We lost, so we're on our way out. He quit. Theresa May was then the person who the party then put forward and took over as leader of the Conservative Party. She then tried to go about the Brexit thing. She went to the European Union to try and sort out trade deals for when we do leave the EU. It failed. She went back. It failed. Every time she went there, it failed. She was just not really getting anything substantial done in terms of trade deals. Then eventually, when she did get a deal like negotiated with them, she brought it back to our parliament. They rejected it. They rejected it again. It was just a complete farce. So in the end, she resigned. And, for those of us in the UK, I know there's definitely more details to that, but I'm not gonna lie to you, it's been 3 years and I'm tired of this shit now. Like, I cannot understand how it's been stretched out like that. But when she said she was gonna resign, they then began the race to look at who will be the next Conservative that will take over her spot. Because the only people that were able to vote on the next prime minister in this situation was members of the Conservative Party. So like their political representatives and people who are members of the party. So a very, 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 very tiny percent. Because like not everybody's like a member of their political party that they support. You know, they might vote for them, but then we're talking about the people that go to like the conferences and all that type of stuff. And it got down to two people, Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson, well, he won. And the irony is this. I've always found it a bit funny how the Conservatives, particularly in the last 15 years, have really gotten quite good at shuffling leaders whilst they're in control. You see, one thing Theresa May did do is that she called for a general election out of nowhere. Now, technically, that does mean that after that general election, she was voted in by the public, but she wouldn't have been in position to call for a general election if chaos hadn't ensued in her party. You know, she had to have already been put forward as the leader of her party, therefore prime minister, to call the general election. She confirmed something which we already knew, which was that she's the leader of the country. But as we've seen by her resigning, that didn't really work. It didn't really mean too much.
Now, where's Boris's stance on the Windrush scandal? Did he ever speak on that, or?
No, terrible. Well, one, I can't recall him saying anything. I'll tell you what, give me just 1 second. I want to have a quick look now just to see if he did say anything, you know, notable and quotable to. Nah, he did not. Nah.
He didn't. Okay.
Nah, nah. To be honest with you, I'll say this. Theresa May caused that issue, and Boris Johnson's the type of person which we Black Brits, we know if Theresa May did that, Boris Johnson definitely ain't gonna support us. And one interesting fact, actually, I really want to point out is this. It's not because of his reputation, but instead his practice, which I bring this up. When he was trying to, you know, get his support for becoming prime minister, he kept talking about when he was mayor of London. Now, he was mayor of London from 2008, I think, up until, I think he did 2 terms. I think that'd be like.
And this is Boris.
Yeah, Boris Johnson. Yeah.
Okay. Now is the Indian guy the mayor of London now? The Muslim guy? Or is he the mayor of
yeah, Sadiq Khan. Yeah, he's the new mayor of London. He's the new mayor of London. But before him was Boris Johnson. In particular, Boris was the mayor of London during the 2012 Olympics.
Okay.
As someone who's from London, I'll tell you this. Boris, he wasn't well, I can't speak for all of London, but I'll speak for everyone that I spoke to, a lot of my friends, a lot of my people. He didn't make London that much nicer to live in. A lot of the gentrification that is taking place in a lot of Black communities, go look at the dates. A lot of it started around Boris's time.
Hey, listen, same thing here in Atlanta when they brought the Olympics in '96. That's kind of when the shift happened.
Exact. Not just that, but he also claimed that he reduced murder by 50% in the capital. Well, one, it reduced by 46%, but the problem is that crime in the whole country as a whole had gone down. And to make it even worse, it's not just that the whole country had a massive reduction in crime in the period that he's trying to claim that he cleaned up London, but actually London's reduction in crime was less than the UK. The UK crime rate dropped 26%, whereas London's dropped 20%. Not just that, but he also used some interesting tactics to help reduce crime stats in London, which was his rampant use of stop and search. Before it was
like same thing in New York.
Yeah, like stop and frisk, right? Before Boris, we're talking about 35,000 cases a year in London. Bearing in mind, London has a population of like 7-8 million. But when Boris got involved, it spiked up to like 123,000 per year. And during that particular time frame that he's talking about, I remember being like a kid, but a kind of older, like an older teenager, if you will. Like at that time, it was not pleasant to be like us and from certain areas whilst this was going on. Like everyone was getting it's just the daily run. But one thing I'll say about Boris is this. One, I do not expect him to give a damn about the Windrush generation. I don't expect him to especially talk about the tangible deal they're trying to work on. I've spoken to a couple solicitors who work in London, and they are, you know, they're talking about the compensation that needs to go to these people. These were elderly people.
So is that gonna happen?
Well, that's the problem. You see, there's people in there working on it, but whether it gets delivered or not, I'm still yet to see, because this scandal did drop, you know, a couple years ago. And to be honest with you, even on our part, I'll say this on my part, I still feel like us, I'm talking about me, myself, and the rest of Black Britain, I still feel we need to make some more noise about that. I think we need to remind these people that people died over this. Like, people went to go see their daughter's wedding and then were getting held up at customs on the way back, saying, oh, how can you prove you live in the country? This is an old person saying, I've lived in Britain since 1950 something, before you were born. How can I prove that? I don't expect them to do much for it or to do much about it. Boris is not going to help that situation at all, in my opinion, because Boris, let's put it like this. Boris frequently refers to Africa as a country, and he said that Black people, I think he was referring to Black children, and he said they had like something like little watermelon pickaninny smiles. Do you think this is a man who is going to break out the bread for us without us bending his arm, figuratively speaking? No. And until somebody, particularly some of these new Black conservatives out there, I hope somebody kind of puts him in a position to understand that that's the kind of thing that needs to be done for our community. But I do not expect him in any way, shape, or form to address the Windrush situation if he can avoid it. His biggest aim right now is to try and push a no-deal Brexit through so that he can so that he can, to be honest with you, just make more money. But no, he's not going to, without us specifically pursuing him politically, Boris will not come out of the woodwork and do something to help our community. No.
Now, somebody in the chat room says, so now we have Trump, who's president of the United States, who's going to be president for another 6 years, more than likely. Boris. So, okay, let me ask you, when's the next election? Formal election? Okay.
That's a good point, actually. The last, hang on a second. I just need to do a quick check on that. Next, UK. But what I will say is this. You made a good point about Trump, and I was thinking about this last night, and I think that people like you and I have to spot something. I think, if we're going to be brutally honest, I think that we're looking at a time where Trump is going to be in next 6 years. He's also putting in a lot of people into the Supreme Court, so we can expect conservative Supreme Court appointments, as well as judges and other positions around his government that he's kind of shoring up for the future. Mm-hmm. We've had the conservatives in power in Britain for a little while now. Like, I mean, I can't actually think back. You know, Theresa May is a conservative. David Cameron was a conservative. We're talking about, we're pushing back maybe 8 to 10 years, or at least maybe 6 to 8 years now of conservative influence in government. I think particularly with Brexit, I think Brexit has put Britain in a position where Britain is going to want to form an alliance with somebody, because we're stepping out of our old voting and trade bloc. We're going to be by ourselves. We are not India. We are not China. We are not America. We're not big enough to do certain things that we used to do, but we're not a small country either. So I think that Trump and a lot of the conservative right in the US are looking at Britain as a financial thing, particularly because we're going to need trade deals after Brexit. I think we're going to see a lot of linking between America and the UK. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if a lot of the money that is, donated, all that type of stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if it's going both sides, like people from the UK donating over to Trump, or people from Trump's people coming over and trying to donate to the UK. I think that's a big thing that's going to be coming in the next few years, particularly because I can't think of any trading situation where a country as rich as the UK is going to leave a group as influential as the European Union. I think that Trump, the conservative right in the States as well as the conservative right in the US are looking to lock down some things. I think that that's a very, very, very interesting thing to look at. And to be honest with you, it's not going to make that much of a difference anyway. America and the UK have always been politically, they've always been political allies. Like, that part is obvious. Like, you know, I kind of look at that like, yeah, but at the same time, looking at the types of characters that are involved right now, a name I would really advise my brothers and sisters in the US to look at is Nigel Farage. Nigel,
I've heard of him. He's like Boris.
You see, how do I put this? I'll tell you what. Actually, I'll quickly send you a link that kind of sums Boris up quite nicely. But Nigel Farage is a little bit different. He's quite
But he's a conservative, right?
No, he's even further than a conservative. He started a party called UKIP, which stands for UK Independence Party, which years ago, even when I was in high school, they were laughed at for being like these crazies who wanted us to leave the European Union. And
okay, he's far right. Okay, here we go.
Very far right. Very far right. Like, even more so far right than, you know, the Conservative Party. Now, since he got his Brexit going, because Brexit basically is Nigel Farage's baby. Like, he's the one who wanted it. He's the one who campaigned. He's the one who summed it up. For years, he got it, but then he quit immediately the day after he got the result announced. Everyone was like, but this is your thing. Surely you want to be prime minister now. Surely you want to see it through now. But he wanted to step away. Politics changed and he's come back. But he was actually recently at a dinner with Trump. And he's very, very, very chummy with the Fox News crowd and with a lot of Trump's base. And seeing, again, him go over there, try and garner support, it's not a surprise that he's also launched now the Brexit Party, which is a new political party. And what's even more interesting is he hasn't just started a political party. He hasn't just sat there and kind of given his 2 cents. He's now trying to suggest that we should have a general election. Now, most of these conservative types don't want a general election right now.
Will they lose, you think? Because
no, I don't think they would lose. I think it would be very, very, very close. It'd be too close to call. It would be too close to call for them to risk it. I think they would narrowly win. But you could also make an argument that they would narrowly lose. They've been in charge for ages and they keep fucking everything up. It would not be a surprise if people turned it around. The only thing they've got going for them with regards to an election is that people are growingly becoming more and more mistrustful of Jeremy Corbyn. And I wouldn't, you know, the things they say about Jeremy Corbyn, some things I look at and I really do question, like, what he's about. And some things I look at and I'm just like, nah. They're just trying to smear the guy with certain things. Like, with certain things, it's just like, oh, okay, that's no different to when they all smear each other and all of that. But the political right doesn't want an election right now because they want to make sure everything stays the same whilst we go through the Brexit process. Because if they lost and Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party got in, Jeremy Corbyn would go and find a deal with the European Union. He would go and undo everything that them conservatives want, and they can't afford to risk that. So I was very shocked when I saw Nigel Farage was calling, you know, he was saying, like, we should have a general election. We should have a general election. I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, why? Why would he want to do that now? And I clocked. The current Conservatives are not the majority party in Britain. They were the biggest, but they still needed to form a coalition with a very small number of seats. I think it was even less than like 25 seats that they needed to take them just over their max. And what I believe is this. Nigel Farage wants that general election so that his party can finally get some proper seats in Parliament, so that he can form the coalition with the Conservatives. That would put Nigel Farage front and center of UK politics with an unprecedented amount of knowledge and ability to take information to where? To his buddies over in the US. And for me, that's why I say we need to look at the right a little bit. I mean, I don't fear the right, like they say, and all that type of stuff, because to be
Right.
honest, you know, they're only going to do what they've already been doing. And one thing that we as Black people in the UK need to remember is that of all of our poor, struggling environments, you know, from certain neighborhoods in Hackney, Edmonton, you know, places up north in Manchester, Leeds, Scotland, you know, all of the, you know, maybe not Scotland, that's a little bit different, but in Black people's majority constituencies where we live in the crime, we live around the drugs, we live around the gentrification, we can't get anything sorted, they're all Labour controlled. So for me, to just simply say like, oh, well, we should vote Labour in because they're gonna save us or this and that. That's not the case. But it doesn't mean that we ignore what these types on the political right are getting up to. Because to be honest with you, they're paralleling the GOP quite, in my opinion, in certain regards, and it's quite predictable. But for us as Black people, I just say leverage. You know, we need to know what we want. We need to be able to say what we want, and if they're not offering a tangible benefit to us, if they're not offering things that are going to genuinely help us, then I don't see what it is that we're going to lose. We're not going to lose anything. We're already losing. Like what? What we're gonna get poorer? How?
Right.
I don't think we can really get much poorer. And in particular, one thing I'll say is I mean, the Labour Party has, you know, they've said a lot, they've not done a lot for us. The Conservatives have said a lot, they've not done anything for us. I personally think that as Black people, for any of us watching that, you know, feel that we take a side on the political spectrum, I think we should take a look back and we should ask ourselves one important question. As a Black person of conscious mind and soul and spirit, does the political spectrum directly apply to me? Because it doesn't.
Right.
Anyone being brutally honest will tell you that the political right is not our right. The political left is not our left. Yes, we can be involved with it. Yes, we can agree with it. But it will fundamentally never come back down to us. We will never reshape and define these spectrums and these paradigms. So to break our necks to represent one side of the spectrum or the other, to me seems quite backwards. Because we've certainly not got anything to show for it in the past. Hell, I'll go back to the Windrush generation when they first showed up. For the past, 50, 60, 70 years. You know, like taking a side like that has never helped us. All I say is, Black people, if you can tell me that the political spectrum applies to you directly, I've got some oceanfront property in Milton Keynes to sell you. I've got some, I've got a bridge in San Francisco I'd like to sell you. You know, it is what it is, man. I don't see Boris as being. I think he's going to cause us more problems, but I don't think he's going to reinvent the wheel on how we get treated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And something that's quite good is when you have someone that's quite stupid, I think they kind of highlight certain things when you let them talk for long enough. But that's Boris.
Okay. My name is Jade. Had a quick question. Now, are you familiar with the riots in 2011?
Yep, that happened quite like where I'm from in London is the epicenter of that.
Oh wow! Now she was saying that Boris was suggesting that water cannons be used.
Yeah, he was, and that's another thing which he loves to leave out. By the way, he was mayor during that whole crisis. You know, like a young man, sorry, was murdered by the police. The investigation found no gun. The papers came out and were trying to lie and say, oh, he had a gun, he shot at the officers, and then the forensics proved the only bullet that went towards an officer went straight through the officer's radio, and it was from another officer shooting the man.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at the CCTV of when they did the search. They asked witnesses who were out in the street. They tried to claim that he threw the gun out of a moving car on broad daylight in the middle of a busy high street and all this other shit. Where was Boris Johnson then? He was very happy to speak that nonsense about us. He was very happy to avoid us. I think Theresa May, she she's a coward because when confronted by people who were victims of the Grenfell Tower fire, she walked by. They didn't abuse her. They just booed her. They shouted at her. They said, you know, what have you? They did what they should do to a woman who abandoned constituents to burn to death and to be dying like that, and she didn't give a damn. Boris ain't coming nowhere near Tottenham. Boris ain't coming nowhere near those parents who lost their kid. The children of that young man still live today, and they're grown up without dad. Boris Johnson wholeheartedly was a massive supporter of the police during that time. He was no good, and his inability to deal with us as a group of black people, I think, was very highlighted. And I hope this, right? I hope that whilst he is prime minister, he runs into a black person that can speak well enough, that doesn't turn out to be a coon for the far right or a coon for the far left. And I hope that they genuinely, and I'm gonna try my best. You know, I'll try my best to find out where he does.
Real quick, guys, hit that like button, okay? As you come to the chat room, please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate it. All right, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
But yeah, like I want somebody. I hope someone from the community can hold his feet to the fire, not just about the riots, but about everything. You know, particularly for us as Africans and Caribbeans in the UK, to go to ex-colonial countries and to be singing all of them stupid little fucking songs, those stupid little wartime poems that they used to sing whilst they was, you know, cutting through the bush and murdering our ancestors and doing all types of all other. To me, that's clearly someone who doesn't have much of an understanding. Would he go say something stupid like that to other communities, like, you know, women's groups and the LGBT? Actually, with Boris, yes, I think he might. But no, he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't come out of his woodworks to speak to us in Black Britain. And I hope that we can hold him accountable for that.
Real quick, now this is a little bit off topic. The Grenfell tower fire. Do you think that was like an inside job, 9/11 situation, or?
Oh, I would say this. It's the flat that burnt down happened to be one of the last flats in an area that was being redeveloped, but it's all in an area of London called Kensington. Kensington is the richest borough in London, and by de facto, the richest borough in the UK. So I would say there certainly was an incentive. I can't just sit there and say like, oh no, it definitely wasn't, because the intentions it would be too much money. It's too obvious. Like, you know, it's like of course somebody evil enough could want to, you know, and not just that, but the people who lived there, they've started websites and blogs. They've written to the council. For years, they had been talking about the poor conditions, and if a fire breaks out, they said, we're going to be trapped. We don't have adequate fire safety. So again, it's not like it was just one big magic accident and no one knew. These people have been talking to the council for ages. So why would you not listen to them? Because they're poor, black and brown?
Yeah, that's why. Hello? I think the brother
Even today, people still haven't been rehomed. People haven't been compensated.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brother Dave, I just want to say one thing. Everything you have said is on point, because I used to live in England and I was there in the 2011 crisis. You know, the whole UK politics is all, you know, it's all a sham, you know, from, what was his name? David Cracker Cameron to Theresa Cracker May to Boris Cracker Johnson. They're just recycling the whole bullshit. Because I lived in England for like 3 years. I was not like those Africans that come into the country and just feel that everything was good. I was so down to everybody, especially to the Black British people, the Black British community. because those are the people that you get a lot of information from. So yeah, everything you've said today is so on point, so on point.
I'll
You
tell you
know, the,
something actually. I remember back in the day when after 9/11 with the Iraq War, and I remember how it was seen and it was perceived that Tony Blair was just following George Bush. I expect to see the exact same thing with Trump and Boris Johnson.
yeah, both crackers will follow themselves. You know, Boris Johnson will be the cracker that follows the big cracker, Donald Trump, because they virtually look the same anyway.
Yo, Boris is little spoon in it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Trump's gonna be
Boris
big.
is just
Boris
the Boris is the UK version of Donald Trump. You know, Boris is the crackety crack that was also involved in that stupid 2011 fire, that 2011 issue that, you know, London was burned down and it went as far as Manchester. I was in England, so you know these guys are nothing but they can't really do anything properly. You know, they're just there for nothing. They won't do anything for us. You know.
Nah, Boris. One thing about Boris that sticks out to me is that he is, in particular, he is one of the least equipped to go forward in his position
Yeah.
of any of them that I've seen. I mean, they're all poorly equipped, in my opinion. I think they all got massive holes. But wow, Boris. I mean, he was foreign secretary, and he was terrible. Mayor of London, he didn't get much love from a lot of communities. He did a lot of things people didn't like, and people. Dinus, I really want you to really understand that a lot of people are still shaking their head like, is this really real? Like, first Brexit, now Boris Johnson. You know what I mean?
What's going on with Brexit? Like, I mean, you guys been talking about this for 3 years now, 4 years now. Like, what's going on with Brexit?
Let's put it like this: they need a deal to all of the government bodies, such as the. Hang on a second, I wrote the name down. The OBR, which stands for the Office of, I think it's Office of Budget and Research, but them, the Her Majesty's Treasury and the Bank of England, all of them predict that if we leave the European Union with no deal in place and we just, just fuck off and we just leave, a lot of them are saying that that's going to be a very, very bad financial kind of situation. They're talking about stats like it will cost us 30 billion, and that's them being conservative. If things go worse, they can say 90 million, and we're not going to get a deal. Boris Johnson and all of his ilk want to leave with no deal, and to be honest with you, Dynast, we are no further than when we last spoke about this. Every single thing they tried.
What I'm confused, like, what's with the issue? I thought since you guys voted to not be in the EU, like, but you guys are still in the EU. Like, is there a date where the EU says, okay, guys, bye?
Yeah, we were supposed to have already had that day, but we weren't ready, and then they've extended it. So the extension is going to go until the 31st of October this year. And that's to allow us to discuss with the EU ways in which we can get a trade deal for when we leave the EU. And the problem is that the EU are doing what they should do, and they're being difficult. Which is, if you, me, and everybody in this chat, everybody watching, if we formed a club and our club was making all the money and our club was controlling everything, and you said you wanted to leave the club, would I give you better terms of being a friend of the club than when you were in the club? Of course not. I don't get why British people think that they're supposed to be nice to us. They're not going to be nice to us, because the problem is a lot of people want to leave the EU. If you start being nice to one country and you give them an excellent deal, that just opens it up for everybody else. Italy will go next, then France, then Germany, and then next thing you know, you don't have an EU no more. The problem is, however, is that for us to just walk out and leave, like I said, Dennis, we're talking about £30 billion like of extra debt. They showed like a report that looked at our GDP. If we don't get a deal, the drop was vertical. It wasn't like a slight turn down. It was straight, like, bang. They're talking about house prices are going to go down, which, you know, actually for some people is a good thing. For some people is a bad thing. You know, like, they're talking about a number of things. I am very unsure what these lot are going to plan to do, but I think they're going to try and go for a no deal.
Yeah, but the thing is that what do you expect from Cracker when it comes to Brexit or whatever? Nothing good comes out from these people. I keep telling people that nothing good comes out from nothing positive. I don't see anything positive from these people. Why is it that our people are holding so much, feeling that this system is strong when it comes when a cracker faces on it? Nothing good. Because this whole system is set to fail. And I see it every day. And people are like, Vic, what am I saying? What am I saying? But that's the truth. You know,
get all the way 100 with you. I think that, like, I think things rise, I think things fall. But my only real interest, aside from living in the UK and hopefully not, you know, watching the country turn to complete shambles, my super interest is how this is going to change how Britain starts acting towards Africa, because this is going to change their money. They're talking about an increase, and this is the Office of Budget Responsibility. That's what I meant, the OBR, not the ORB, sorry, the Office of Budget Responsibility. They're predicting a 12% rise in debt. So 12% of GDP rise in debt, an increase in borrowing, 8% drop in house prices, you know, prices of food and services rising faster than wages, and the pound as a currency dropping off by 10%. If you told me 10 years ago that that is what the official British government was predicting, I would say back then, go look at what they're going to do in Africa, because they're going to start coming around and they're going to start cashing in, and especially around Ghana and Nigeria. Those are going to be some two sure horses, because their influence on Zimbabwe doesn't work no more. The one thing I'll give Zimbabwe, yeah, some things went good, some things went bad. I don't agree with Mugabe for some things. I agree with Mugabe for other things. But I tell you something, he created a Zimbabwe where they would rather go to Ghana and Nigeria to get their money before they have to go to Zimbabwe.
Right.
I mean,
I want people, yeah, I want people to understand one thing, because someone in the chat is saying that if the system is falling down, then why are people migrating to Europe? I'm like, yo, people should understand that we melanated people were everywhere. And that's even a sign to give that this system is about to collapse, because it will come to a stage where they can't even control. They are not, how will I put, they are not Thanos with Infinity Gauntlet. Like, people should stop this nonsense. It's falling. That's why I can't move anywhere. Like, very soon now, by 2020, the African Union will start having passports and everybody can move to all 54 nations, except for Morocco. So people should understand that, you know, this immigration is a form of policing, which is going to break out. You can't do it for so long. People, they've been doing it for so many years, but they can't, it won't hold. That's what people should understand. So they should understand that in the world we live in, not just in Africa, but melanated people cover the whole entire earth, the four corners of the earth. Okay, and we're getting to that point where things are happening. Okay, so people should stop all this, oh, the Chinese are in Africa, Chinese own Africa. Like, people, those are just, you know, I don't know, some the problem with us is that we have too many Oreos. Too many.
yeah.
Too many Oreos, too many coons, and too many shoe shiners. I was telling someone that we have too many shoe shiners, and that's our problem. Too many.
You couldn't have said it better, bruv. You couldn't have said that better. And the reality is that, and this is something which, in particular, I find a bigger problem in the UK than anywhere else that I've been to or studied or looked at, which is sometimes in the UK, we are too quiet for our own good. And I really do feel that we need to keep being as vocal as possible about us sorting ourselves out as a community. Because as you said, nothing positive will come of these people. And, you know, as it looks, It looks like there are cracks forming in the wall. It looks like Rome may fall. We need to be, you know, as empowering to ourselves as humanly possible. Now, it's all good. We can be up here. We can know politics. But my God, we need people that are willing to take a few risks. We need to start putting people in position, organizing, you know, in our own best interest. And I think in particular, I think a great example of this is how white people treated us pre-Brexit. With the Indians, they went to the heads of some of their industries, like the restaurant industries, right? Indians in the UK, you know, the question for most people on takeaway is, are we going to have Indian or Chinese? So
Right. They say Indian restaurants are like Mexican restaurants in LA.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. You know, they're everywhere. And, you know, hey, I prefer Chinese, but, you know, even I've gone to an Indian restaurant in my day. But
you there? Let me read this super chat real quick. Horner, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Dinus, can you ask these guys why Brexit is
how
a
can
bad?
we help? You know, how can we help you guys? And the Indian restaurant industry made a point to say that they needed visas for their chefs to come from Bangladesh.
Are you serious?
Because that's
sure.
In their hustle. That's part of it. They like a lot of the restaurants are owned by Indian people, but the chefs are Bangladeshi, and they needed them to have.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give you another one. In LA, a lot of these Indian restaurants are owned by Pakistanis.
Yeah, same way.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, but you see, the fact that they would even approach the Indian community like that, they would go to their business people and see what they needed in terms of an actual policy, an actual thing. Like, hey, we're going to help you get these visas right. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but if someone's approaching you talking like that, there's a place of respect for that. I think we need to look at ourselves and say, hey, we weren't approached like that. Yes, because of how they view us, but also because of how we handle ourselves. We need to ensure that we are business-minded and organized. But, you know, it is what it is there.
Okay, let me finish reading the super chat real quick. Horner says, "Hey, Dinus, can you ask these guys why Brexit is a bad thing for Africans in the UK? It should open up more opportunities for them, actually."
No.
And real quick before you answer that, guys, please hit that like button. I don't know why I gotta beg you guys just to like the video. Just please hit the like button as you come into the chat room. All right, go ahead.
I don't think that Brexit at all. Do you know why? They pretty much got the Brexit thing to happen by pressing these scared white masses, the same people that live in the Rust Belt in America, in Britain, in all of these ex-industrial towns where they don't get coal anymore, where they don't get steel anymore. They went and got all of them lot to vote for this based on the whole, we're going to stop immigration. We're going to stop the invasion of Britain. We're going to stop these people coming here, this and that. So when people say this is going to be good for black people, that's my point. That's why I use that example about the Indians in the restaurant. They didn't come to us saying that they wanted to do anything tangible for us. They didn't. I hate this idea that we're just going to assume they might do something good for us. Did they say they were going to do anything for Africa? Specific? No. They said, oh, well, it'll make it easier for people from ex-colony empires to move to the UK. Bullshit. Tell me the policy or the type of visa you're going to invent. Show me the proof of it. But no, the fact that they used massively, they used, you know, fear of the brown and black people, particularly when we're talking about black people from like Nigeria or places in West Africa that have come through the Mediterranean. Especially when we've got our brothers and sisters dying in the ocean. If they were going to do anything for us, why didn't they say, hey, black people, we're tired of seeing black men, women, and children dying in boats on the side of the Mediterranean. Here's what we're going to do. Post-Brexit, we're going to set this up for you. They didn't say that because they don't have an intention of helping us. If they were going to help us post-Brexit, then why aren't they helping the Windrush generation? Them lot, Windrush generation were World War II war veterans. If they're not going to help them, if they're not going to tell us what they're going to do for our brothers and sisters dying to get into Europe, dying to get into Italy, then I don't think confidently that they are going to do anything intentional for us until we make them.
Yeah, I just want to say this, like the Windrush situation, because I was really watching the Windrush issue. It's not just an attack on the Black British people in the UK. It's an attack on us worldwide. It's an attack. People should not narrow it down to just the Black British in the UK. It's an attack on us worldwide. They are letting us know that look, we can come and do what we like. Okay, so our people need to soldier up and stop, shoe shine and bug dancing to these people all the time. And this is the mindset I see, because when I saw that, I was like, this can happen to me. This can happen to my father. This can happen to my grandfather.
Yeah.
So I saw that. I was seeing it more on a global scale. Like these guys are always holding their rifles. So we too, we need to be holding our own AK-47s and AR-15s, and because this is war.
Renetta, anything you want to add? Shout out to Renetta.
Sure. Sure, thanks. I might be a little bit long-winded, but I promise I'll keep it short and straight to the point. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right. So in order for you to understand what is taking place in the United States, in Great Britain, in the European superstate, and its relationship to Latin America, the Caribbean, and most importantly, the coming invasion that's going to be thwarted on the African continent. You need to understand several variables, okay? Several variables. The first variable you need to understand is what they call cycles, okay? And these are specific cycles that happen every 100 years or hundreds of years. They're specific cycles. The cycle that we are in now is called the war cycle. In ancient Egyptian theory, or in ancient Egyptian cosmology, it's called the age of Sekhmet. And I'm not going to go into too much details of that. This is how old these cycles are, okay? Now, in order for you to understand the war cycle and who is at the helm of the war cycle, I'm going to take you back in time for a little bit. Prior to the transatlantic slave trade, okay, not the Islamic slave trade, but the transatlantic slave trade, Europe was in a mini ice age, okay? I'm going somewhere with this. You have to follow me. The European, and at the time, that was a war cycle. Okay? The war cycle, as it played out, was in relationship to trade. Remember the whole Columbus story and that spice route being blocked, thus prompting Spain to set Columbus off and yada, yada, yada. Okay? What you also have to look at during that mini ice age that Europe was under, what was happening in Europe prior to the rise of the transatlantic slave trade? We saw the war cycle, the trade cycle, okay? All of this is a part of it. We also saw that white poor Europeans were fighting the European slave masters. Now, Europe doesn't like to talk about the fact that they were enslaved by the same people who turned around and enslaved Black people. They called it serfdom, when in actuality it was slavery. Okay? They like to mask it and call it serfdom. When you look at the harsh realities of this so-called serfdom and the hierarchy of which the church, which was the second from the top of the pyramid, were the ones who guided the government to enforce European serfdom, okay? What was occurring in Europe at the time, right prior to the rise of the transatlantic slave trade? I'm giving you context, right? Ice Age, trade war, right? The European serfs, that is the regular poor white people, Okay, they did not have the same level of brutal slavery they did to Black people. But follow me with it. They rose up against the church and the government to put an end to white European slavery, or what they call serfdom, which prompted under an ice age. Think about an ice age. You can't grow food. Think about what I'm telling you. You can't grow food. So what was the condition of Europe prior to the transatlantic slave trade? The inability to grow food and the inability to have commerce, strong commerce, and the Arabs were blocking the Europeans from the trade route. Hence your rise of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, why was Africa chosen? Fertile land year-round, and people who mastered agriculture, which in turn turned around and built Europe. Now let's fast forward. Now, there are many scientists who the mainstream media never purport. You have to dig this information up to understand the cycle that we're in today. Okay? That past cycle, prior to the, at the rise of the transatlantic slave trade, okay, it caused the genocide of 200 million Native Americans. We are in a similar cycle. We are not going into global warming. We're going into global cooling. Okay? We're in the same cycle. And when you study these cycles, you see the same thing happening. Unrest, weakened food production, and you see a shift in the mindset of the white European leaders, and in this case, white American government, having a more aggressive tone to people who live closer to the equator. Study the cycle.
Okay.
Study the cycle. This is not new. I'm showing you guys this is an actual cycle, okay? They change their perspective. Not that they've ever had a good perspective about Black people, but they become, during certain cycles, more aggressive towards people who come from countries that are closer to the equator. And what do you think that prompts? It prompts things like the acquisition of resources, the brutal acquisition of resources, like your Venezuela, like your Honduras, like your Nicaragua, like your Iraq, your Iran, your going into Iran, your Libya, your Syria. Okay, what do all these countries have in common? Rich in resources, and they are close to the equator, or they're pretty much temperate. That's the first thing I want to say. The two other points I want to make is when you want to understand why, because I hear a lot of Black Americans say, okay, if African countries or Caribbean countries are so great, why are you coming here? You have to understand this, okay? And most Black people in America are not they don't think or watch geopolitics.
We were talking about that last night on
Sister, keep rolling, okay? Sister, keep rolling.
So in order for you to understand why your country is being inundated with certain groups of people who are mainly Black or brown or have some hue into your country, you got to study the war cycle. In the war cycle, what happened? Let's look at the African continent and let's look at the Caribbean, okay? Now, Blacks in America believe that the African continent are fully independent. Not if you're a Commonwealth.
Hell no.
You have to understand the term, the Latin term, legis, L-E-G-I-S. Legis means law. Okay, this is where you get your word legislation or legislature, right? Yeah. When you look at the way in which these countries their legis or their legal structure is set up. Can anyone tell me whose legal structure runs Black country? Is it indigenous
European.
Black league? Oh, okay.
No, the European.
So it bingo. So if your legis, the structure of your governance, your laws, we understand what laws mean. Laws mean everything that governs how your countries operate. If your legis is structured by people who don't look like you, and you gained so-called independence, but you're either under a Portuguese Commonwealth, a Dutch Commonwealth, a French
Okay.
Commonwealth, or a British Commonwealth, who do you think is behind pulling the
Nice.
string
Bravo.
in your
Bravo.
country? Now let's fast
Oh
forward.
man.
So we understand the legis, we understand the structure of Black countries in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa, right? So we laid the foundation. So you're seeing a massive migration of people into the Mediterranean dying in droves. The bulk of those people come from two countries. One is Nigeria, the second is Cameroon. Okay? When you want to understand why Nigeria and why Cameroon, you have two European Commonwealth battling for this country,
Yep.
by which the French controls, and their legis leans towards Imperial France still. Nigeria, when we look at the legis, the legal structure of Nigeria, it is the British.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
No, you're
No,
right.
you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
It is the British, and it was the British who basically lumped together a whole group of people. Now, when we look at the structure of these countries, we see that it's being governed by external powers. Those external powers understand that gold and silver and diamond and platinum and oil are not found, and your bauxite and your coal tar are not found in Europe. Where are they found? In the resource-rich, dark-hued country. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is this: if the countries who structured the legal structure of Black countries are white, why would they want those countries to have peace? When they know turmoil, you have to understand the Latin term order ab chaos. Order ab chaos. It means order out of chaos.
Sister, just continue.
Okay? Order out of chaos. Trump is an occultist. He understands stirring up chaos and bringing order, or Hegelian dialectic.
Straight up.
Okay? All right. This is why you cannot get emotional when you watch these leaders. You have to be logical. Now, back to the situation in Black countries, right? There is something known as, and I need everyone to go look this up. It's called the Kalergi Plan. Okay? Kalergi. I explained to you guys before, there are only two factions that run this planet. When you understand and you thoroughly study these two factions, nothing will surprise you when you wear this skin. One faction is the Zionist faction. The lesser known faction who move via stealth is the Nazi faction. The Zionist wants to bring about their new world, and the Nazi Fourth Reich wants to bring about their new world. And at times, these two fight. And that's what you're seeing taking place. Back to the Kalergi Plan. The Kalergi Plan was this. This plan was created by a Ashkenazi woman, Ashkenazi. And when you look at the last four letters of the term Ashkenazi, It is not ironic that it spells Nazi. It is not a coincidence, people. It's not a coincidence. Okay, now let's go back to this Kalergi plan. When you want to understand why instability is being created in gold producing Nigeria, let me stress this. Nigeria just started producing or mining, gold this year.
Yep.
Guys, open your eyes. There is an asteroid, side note, there is an asteroid barreling towards the Earth in the 400th year cycle that slavery ended, and there's a gold, the asteroid is pure gold. Nigeria just started mining gold this year. If the bedrock of Nigerian governance is under Britain, who do you think is causing the instability to push Nigerians out of the resource-rich land, dying into the Mediterranean? In the Mediterranean. Guys, open your eyes. When you understand the Kalegi plan, read it, know it, and learn it. They know that the European birth rate is literally under 2%. When birth rates begin declining at a certain trajectory, they know that the race or the color group, the group of color, it can never turn around. The Kalergi plan proposes, this is the Ashkenazi woman who created this, I forgot her name, Barbara something. They believe that in order to dilute the so-called European genes to make them inferior, they believe in collapsing Black countries and pushing Black people out of their resource-rich countries into Europe and then getting them to mate with white to lower their so-called IQ. Because when you study intelligence quotient from the eugenics, it was an Ashkenazi who created eugenics. Okay? I'm just telling you how they think.
Huxley. Okay.
And I'm telling you the plan. This is why you cannot be emotional. You must be logical.
Oh boy.
So when you want to understand the context of the flood into the Mediterranean, most of which who die in the Mediterranean and get organ harvested, you must understand the Kalegi plan. Thus the reason for taking out Gaddafi. Gaddafi was blocking that plan from going through. Gaddafi blocked the migrants from going in, and he tried to fight the Kalergi plan by bringing out a gold-backed dinar.
That's why they killed him.
And we all know, bingo.
Straight up.
Okay, so the Kalergi plan is one. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish it. Then we got my name is Jade on too. But go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
Okay, last one. The last part. I'm sorry. Study the Fourth Reich. Study the
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Okay, so the Fourth Reich. The second part that you need to study is you need to understand how the Fourth Reich operates. Okay, the Ashkenazis and the Fourth Reich, they fight over the planet. Whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Zionist, whether you're Black, white, Indian, they are all a part of either the Fourth Reich. Study Nazism in North Africa. Go study Nazism in North Africa and the Middle East if you don't believe me, and study Zionism all over the planet. So they're either one of two factions. They're either Zionist or Fourth Reich, and I believe Trump is both. Okay, he's both Fourth Reich and Zionist. Okay, so last and final thing, when you want to understand what is taking place and why now all of a sudden there's a push towards that gold-backed currency, the 400th year cycle of slavery ended, a gold asteroid. Guys, you got to pay attention to what's going on up in the heavens, because that's what determines the cycles. Don't let anyone tell you astrology is garbage or astronomy is garbage. If you want to understand what's taking place on this planet, you must understand the cycles that's going on in the cosmos. There's a complete gold asteroid barreling towards the Earth, and all of a sudden we see BRICS dumping fiat currency and backing up and shoring up their currency with a gold-backed currency. And this is the base of the battle. I'll let someone else speak. Thank you, Dinah.
Thank you.
No problem. My name is Jade. You still on with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Go ahead. What do you want to add to this? Go ahead.
Well, to be honest, because I was on the train, I kind of missed sort of chunk. So I'm kind of like more towards the start of the conversation about Boris Johnson.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, you see, for something like Boris Johnson, I'm not even worried. I think like a few years ago, I would have been like the sort of panicky type. Like I see a lot of people reacting, like a lot of young Afro-Caribbean people, like, you know, reacting and kind of being stupid and, oh my God, Boris, and he said this and he said that. But I kind of see it as like a good moment in terms of trying to at least get our communities together, because like since the Windrush generation, like our grandparents and parents and stuff came over and they had to stick together. They were stuck together. And I think that over a period of time, let's say from maybe like the 80s on upwards, we've started to separate and become more individualistic in our mindset. And so that's why, like in a situation like this, where I did hear the part about Indians being approached, Indian business people being approached, the way that the Indian community runs, they're very, very tight knit.
Exactly.
The Arabs are very tight knit.
Exactly. Even with like Pakistani Muslims as well. Tight knit.
Yeah, they're very tight knit.
Tight knit. Jewish, tight knit. White people, tight knit. Black people will fight like hell to not be with each other.
And I honestly think that it's like this whole push, like when I was in school, they were always pushing this thing called British values. And I think that people in my generation, so those that are like 20, 21 up to 25, we had to deal with this whole British values and just being individual so-called British people. I went to a conference last week, Saturday, a Caribbean conference for Afro-Caribbean youth. And like kind of the most common thing that was being said is that as we've been here for like 70 years, decade after decade, we're losing that sense of community, or we've lost it now. At this point, I think it's completely gone. And we're losing our culture and our values. I think if we had the culture and the values that we had before, Boris Johnson wouldn't even be a concern, and we would have the respect of these so-called politicians to come to our community and say, okay, or we can ring their arm and say, look, this is what we're asking for. I don't really think that it would be any good us playing the politics, because I just don't see us like, I don't know, David, I don't know if you think that we'd even get anything from these people.
We wouldn't. And I'll tell you why. One reason why we wouldn't is because we wouldn't, and we have not displayed an ability to hold our nerve. For example, even though I think people like David Lammy, Black MP in the UK, and Diane Abbott, Black MP in the UK, for their whole lives, their careers, they've done good things, okay? I'm not going to take away their good things. But we don't hold them to the fire. Why would a politician come to us and promise us anything? Because we've proven on countless occasions that we won't even ask you about it afterwards when you don't do it. I agree with you completely. And in particular, what you've said about the whole, the British values, the diluting of our community, if you will, to a point where we are now on our knees in this country, I don't think it's by accident, but I think it's a very, very, very important thing that you said at the start, which is that Boris is going to be good for us. The same way Trump was good for America, for Black America, sorry. Because you can't bury your head when somebody's kicking you in the head. When somebody's kicking you in the head, you have to face up to the truth. And I think you're right. I think Boris is going to make us face up to the truth. I don't think he has our interest at heart, but it's great that he's very public about what he does. And I agree with you a lot. I think you got it bang on the head.
Yeah, I really do think that this is something that's gonna make us think. Because I've started, like, what I do every now and again, I'll kind of talk to people and just kind of see where their heads are at and stuff like that. Like for me, I've always had the idea of being able to go back to the Caribbean and like kind of just contribute and do what I need to do. And like now I'm starting to hear people talking about this whole, oh, maybe we should go back home, maybe we should try and kind of build up, you know, the countries that we come from, we should leave. But it's not necessarily like that easy to do, especially if you're like generations. Like for me, for where I come from, I have to go through all these kind of hurdles to even attempt to get citizenship and stuff like that. But I mean, do you think that, okay, with this situation and Boris getting in, do you think that our communities could even rally together to go to our high commissions and go back to our own countries and say, like, look, you guys need to let us come back, because he's not going to do anything for the Caribbean that's any good. He's not going to do anything good for Africa.
Well,
real quick, let me read the super chats. Abrams Lenoris, thank you for the super chat. There's somebody else super chatted, but let me go. I'll find it. Shout out to Ed Town for the super chat. Somebody in the chat room says that swirling is on a all-time high in the UK. Is that true?
Yeah,
it's always been, to be fair.
It has been a prominent thing, but to be 100% honest with you, massive factor. And you know, the debates I've gotten into on that topic alone, wow, like yeah, it is all-time high. And
I think that swelling contributes to the whole us kind of losing our community, because when you make children with these people, it's a weird dynamic. Because when I went to school, like there was a lot of mixed kids, and there's this weird dynamic of you have the black kids, then you have the mixed kids who try to kind of blend in with the black kids, but they have the white mum and they're raised kind of white. It creates this kind of weird atmosphere, because they kind of straddle the fence, but then they're kind of pushed as the face of black people here. Like it's a bunch of confusion. And then because you've got these white mothers now basically injecting themselves into our communities, dare I say, it just fucks us up. Really, it fucks us up.
Expand on that. That dynamic, as far as the white mothers.
I'll say this as well, right? The white mums injecting themselves into, right? You'll hear typical. I remember I heard one typical comment from one person, and it was like, "Oh, well, I know about the hair, and I know about certain things about black culture because my boy's dad is black." And in some
okay.
In some cases, you know what? You'll meet people and you will always see one of them at the wedding or at the barbecue or whatever. And in some cases, it's you don't notice it, which I think is the best thing, when you don't notice it. But a lot more, in my opinion, of recent, you just notice it. You just see them. They're there. They always say something. And across the board, one thing I point out a lot, and this is something Black Britain has to be very, very careful of. It's not as much the mixed race people in London who, for example, as said, would kind of be more towards their kind of black side, if you will. But there's a very large growing number of mixed race kids growing up in places outside of London, in little towns, in little villages, in little places where they are the only black face. And some of them are the ones who are raised solely by the white parent. And for some of them, it just does not wind up good at all. They wind up super confused. They wind up super self-hating. And these tend to be the negative voices that are going to creep up and start saying, oh, well, I'm black and oh, well, I'm black and this is how we just need to work harder. That is something which can be a factor. But at the same time, to anybody out there that is of mixed heritage, I've always said this: if you're down and if you're down and or you're trying to find out and all that, cool, be down, get your knowledge, try and find out, But at the same time, I think mixed race people in the UK are at a very dangerous place of being used, particularly, as said earlier, as the black face of Britain and as a means of kind of being a buffer, like, oh, well, we're not going to hang out with the blacks. We'll get our 2 mixed race sports celebrities to come in, and that will be enough. I think that's definitely a factor. That's very definitely a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yes.
like what you said about the confusion thing, because there's this page on Facebook, I think it's like Black British World or something like that. And there's been countless articles of these people, these mixed race people growing up in like some like Kidderminster or somewhere like that, some weird tiny town. And then they've been told that, well, they assume that they're white their whole lives until they get to like London or some city. And then they're like, what do you mean I'm black? Like literally they believe that they were white.
Yeah.
And then they're just sent into a headspin, like they can't hack it, like they can't understand.
The truth. And one of the things I personally believe is that educationally, we as a community need to push the government to say, no, if you're going to teach everything in schools, like you're planning on putting all this stuff about, you know, the LGBT stuff in schools, you know, we're getting rid of certain things, we're bringing in more stuff of other stuff. I want to see it made sure that black youth are taught, this is what black is, this is what mixed race is, this is, the history of these people in this country. And that's
they won't do it.
No, they won't until, as usual. The only thing I ever say is if we put the pressure on, I think that some councils will give. And I think when the correct council gives, it will start the cascade effect. And I think that even though it's a different community and it's a different group and it's a completely different conversation, I think the gay community being able to get all that LGBT stuff in the school curriculum, I think that's a sign that says, don't think that these people are iron. Like, I think but again, that would also depend on us being able to be united. We would need to be able to get like 500 signatures from Hackneys, 500 signatures from Plaistow, 500 signatures from this. We would need to be able to organize and to be able to say, nah, this is something from our community, which we're not able to do. And it's not helped when, every other mum, potentially don't look like us, or some mums are out there. I've heard of some of these mums saying the N-word around their kids and all that, so saying nigger around their kid. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I just want to say this. To me, swirling is nothing but a genetic annihilation of our people. Whether it's from the mom, whether it's from the black man or from the black woman, always going down with Becky or Brad. And also the love of Bexy's and Brad has increased enormously now, because back in slavery it was a matter of, okay, if you were caught you were going to be killed, but now our people are making a conscious choice to dine with Becky, and this is happening globally. Okay, and shout out to Mr. Pirate Brain. He said that mixed race is a new race. It's a different race from both black and white, which is true. We are not supposed to be mixing with these people genetically. We are not. It has a physical consequence, and it also has a spiritual consequence. Serious, on a very serious note. And when I tell people this here in Canada, they want to kill me because we have too many Oreos here that think like crack all the time. They're like, why is this guy saying this? You're Nigerian. I'm like, yeah, but there's some certain things I know. Like, you cannot mix. You can't. We're different. They say, oh, the human race. No, we're different. We have a different kind of melanin. They don't have melanin like we do. Everything, hair, texture, everything, internal body organs, the way it's different. The way we sweat is different. Our people should try,
It swings and roundabouts. And
whose house phone is that? Who got a house phone? Y'all still got house phones in the UK?
That ain't me. Whose is that?
There's a house phone going off.
I was thinking, like, whose office is that? Like, whose office?
It's all good. Hey, Horner, I sent you the link, Horner. I already sent it to you.
But yeah, I think particularly for for mixed race people, young mixed race people in the UK right now, as the situation is, I just hope that if you're not raised with the right mindset to know who you are, where you come from, and what you're about, and in particular, listening to Akala, and I know that I'm definitely, a lot of people out there will often yank out Akala whenever we're having this discussion, but he said something about being a mixed race person racialized as black. That's part of the confusion. Yes, mixed race people, yeah, all right, cool. You're different from someone who's got two black parents, but guess what? Do they who run society see that difference? No. And the best way to remember that is that, you remember 2011, remember those riots we were talking about? The guy,
Mark Duggan was mixed.
Exactly, Mark Duggan was mixed. And it was his white mum that was at that police station that day crying and making a fuss and a scene about it. Because, you know, in that case, again, that's what happens when things are, you know, at least in a way that's normal, regular. But then you even look at Mark Duggan's age, look at, you know, when he would have been born compared to someone who may be born now. That may be a different conversation. But like, that's where I look at like some mixed race people who don't think they're black. And I'm like, oh, okay, they'll teach you. They'll teach you when you're black, you know. And I hope that you're alive to remember the lesson, because whether you like it or not, this is the world. And if you as a mixed race person particularly don't know that factor, you know, you're very likely, unfortunately, to develop that self-hatred and to be used by other people for nefarious reasons.
All right, cool. Horner, I sent you the link. So, but everyone, please hit that like button as you come to the chat room. You know, the topic is, how does Boris Johnson being elected UK Prime Minister affect Black Brits? You know, we're kind of, you know,
right, well, we realize it's going to open up our eyes, and it's going to stop you from being able to bury your head, and it's going to stop you from sitting there and talking some complete nonsense about we're all part of this, we're all in this together. No, we're not. So I hope, as my brother said earlier, I hope, you know, the people out there understand the environment we're in. And I hope Boris Johnson just shines a light on it. I hope he embarrasses, what's that fool? Sam Giamma. He's a black conservative with the Conservative Party. I hope he embarrasses him. I hope all of them fools get their nigger moment. And I hope that we all just look with our eyes and wait for something actual and tangible to be put in front of us before we even consider participating in these people's political system, because we're not a part of it. We haven't been. We've been a bunch of tokens and in-betweeners. And I think now, with somebody who's going to be so outright in your face with his, you know, ignorance, I hope now that we learn our lesson.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dinosaur. My phone. Some people are just bugging me. You know, these people are like, geez.
Bill Collective. They call it Bill Collective.
Yeah, they always disturb my phone.
And guys, please hit that like button, or go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is that, see, like the brother said, this system was not created for us. Our people don't want to get it. They're like, they are fighting to turn. Every time they come to Diners, anytime Diners does a live stream, these people come on his chat and they're fighting. Like, seriously, how long will you hold on to Cracker Zaddy for? How long? Like, how long?
Oh no, they still think that they're, the freedom and all of the goods. Apparently, it's all around the corner. If we just work a little harder, if we just work a little harder, we pull our bootstraps up. Remember, we worked for free for hundreds of years, but if we just work a touch harder, it's gonna come for us.
Pull you by your bootstraps. Oh man.
I mean, what we'll do now, see, this is the problem. Now, people ask for the link. So Horner asked for the link. Brother, send me the link. Send me the link. I send the link. Oh, brother, give me some time. Brother, we're about to close out.
Sorry, can I ask a question quickly? I don't know if it was touched on.
Go ahead.
Right, so Boris Johnson, I want to tie this into this whole BAME thing, because I don't like the whole BAME concept as well. Apparently this woman that he's put as, I can't even remember, some secretary, Priti Patel.
Oh boy, yeah, Priti Patel. Hang on, I'm just checking her position, but I know the name. Yeah,
like I feel like Boris is probably just going to use her as the face of BAME and equality to keep us quiet in terms of like with the policing and things like that. Because like you said before, he's a proponent of the stop and search. And
exactly. And you're right. She's gonna be his little brown face. You know who
yeah,
else will use? Sajid David, who is the new foreign
to
secretary,
foreign
or
secretary.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's another Indian
All
or
these are
Pakistan.
Oreos.
Oh no, he's from I think he's either from India or Pakistan, but
He's
yeah, same
Pakistani, I
concept.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna use that,
Oranges
and
and
I've made a point about that BAME. It's like the whole black and brown alliance. There is no black and brown alliance. There's none of that. You're right.
No,
You're
no,
dead right.
it has never worked.
Because no, I mean it's going to be dangerous for us because I know that Boris Johnson is. I think they said they're going to try and get the Metropolitan Police 20,000 more police officers.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's what I heard. 20,000 more police officers. I mean, bearing in mind stations are closing everywhere, but you know, with these recent spate of shootings and stabbings and stuff, I feel like they're going to use this as the reason to increase police presence and basically turn up the brutality.
And increase police brutality and police brutality bonds.
Yeah,
but I'm still trying to figure out where are all these shootings coming from, because it's kind of reminding me of like the early 2000s. If you remember, like all the shootings that were happening and all the drug wars and all this foolishness that was going on. I feel like that kind of vibe is starting to pick up.
It is, and even how the media spin it, you know, in some measurements it's not as bad as it used to be, and in some measurements it is. But I have to say, yeah, I agree with you. I think that we're going to see a massive increase in police presence, and I think in the next 4 years we're going to start to see the heat come back in terms of police versus the people.
Yeah, it's going to be Operation Trident Part 2.
Hey, Horner, go ahead and answer a question. Horner.
Horner.
Are you a troll?
Who is Horner? What kind of name?
I don't know. He had a question. I was gonna let him on. I'm about to. Horner.
Come on now.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
He's
Damn.
Yeah. Go ahead and continue. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, do you think? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. My name is Jay. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you think that these I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist because I'm not really one for conspiracy, but with the way that the whole shootings and stabbings thing is going on, this is all kind of coming out of nowhere. And like the one that shocked me the most was the 2 shootings that happened in Wembley a few weeks ago. Because bearing in mind, like Wembley's now this unrecognizable, proper done up. You know, they got the stadium, they got the arena, they got the civic center, they got all these new things, and now all of a sudden, like these shootings are happening. Like, do you think that there's like, I don't know, like, are they trying to set something off, or is it just me looking into it too much?
I would say this. I remember back when the Chicago stuff was popping off, and there was talk to suggest that the people committing these shootings were not part of the community, that they was coming in, causing drama, and then leaving. I mean, yes, people are poor. When people are poor and people suffer, the streets get hot. People have been getting onto it. Yes, this and that. You've made a good point about that whole part where Wembley's not recognizable anymore. My whole thing is yeah, all right. There's going to be some poor areas, sure, and all that, but you know, like I do think, where are these guns coming from? Like the streets are really turning up like that. Like where does it all come from? Because it's like you know, a lot of the things are kind of very kind of like wow, you know, like I remember when that little 14-year-old, I can't remember, like even one white girl got stabbed, and the way the media was going on it about it, I was just like, raw, like you know, I don't rule anything out with these people.
The guns are coming from the British government.
That's another one too. We're the number 2 trader of arms in the world. So, you know.
England.
Oh, sorry, go on.
So England has, you know, England is like this person that wears a very nice suit and smiles at you and shows you a nice smiling grin. But holding behind him, he holds a gun, a knife, and also a small pocket of spray poison. Bloody British.
Oh, that's it on there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true because with these recent shootings and stuff like that, I kind of started to do some research, and I kind of reading some ebooks about the early 2000s, and like the whole Yardie epidemic that was going on
Yeah,
for a few years. And in these books they were talking about like these police officers that basically had took it on themselves to form whatever kind of squad and go out basically like Yardie hunting.
yeah,
But like I feel like they leave out in these books the parts that they played in it. So like, they'll be talking about, all the crack and the prostitution and the guns and the shootings and stuff like that. But when in the book, when they would mention where the guns were coming from, these were white people that were giving black people the guns, basically. Like they would, because guns aren't as easy to get here. They
yeah,
would be showing these kids how to convert like a mobile phone into a gun, a
yeah,
box into a gun, and all this kind of
and
madness.
like replica guns and that. Like I've heard
Yeah,
that they can, like
like
they change
water
the guns
pistols and
for real.
stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
I feel like
think
them people are probably government agents.
I wouldn't write it off at all. And the thing is it's just like crime anywhere where black people, if they want to say that we're involved with crime, cool, but just keep going up the levels and keep seeing how black it is the higher you go up in a crime rank. And you'll eventually get to, rich white money with most crimes. You'll eventually find yourself back with rich white money.
Yeah, because they're the ones that fuel like the drug trade and things like that. Like with the stabbings that were happening, I was listening to LBC and they're talking about pretty much it's the middle class, the white middle class, and the elite that are well, some are saying that they're the ones that are basically causing all this crap to go down because all they have to do is WhatsApp a dealer.
Yep.
And he will just come round and put an envelope through their door, and that's £400 in his account. But
Yep.
it's them that's fueling
Yeah.
all of this.
And I think one of the best examples is I can't remember the I think it was Michael Gove. He was a politician right when Theresa May resigned, and they were talking about who's going to run the Conservative Party again. He came out and he was in this scandal because he admitted to taking cocaine.
Oh yeah.
And that was when I first heard, particularly on LBC and that as well, about how they was talking about how the middle classes and upper classes contribute to the drug industry. And not just that, but even as black people, we know we don't buy cocaine like that in this country. We don't even buy crack like that in this country because there ain't that many of us in this country. You really want to talk about numbers of who's buying these drugs, who's funding these environments. It can't even feasibly come from us, like solely. And when you look at that, I've lived in multiple places in the UK, but it's one of those ones where these types of crimes, this type of money, it will come from outside the community, typically into the communities of inner cities, London, Birmingham, Liverpool's, Manchester's, particularly where we as black people live. And it will be that money which fuels us in. People like Michael Gove getting wrapped up in a cocaine scandal is the absolute proof in the pudding. And he was going to potentially be prime minister.
What we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us in this discussion. My name is Jade. Go ahead and tell everybody where they could subscribe to your channel and reach you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, my channel is called My Name is Jade. I'm starting to live stream a bit more now because I just went off of it. Subscribe if you want. That's just about it, really.
What is that on Instagram or?
No, on YouTube.
YouTube. All right. Cool.
Yeah. In police brutality, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I do a channel called Police Brutality Worldwide where I talk about police issues, other issues. You could just put on YouTube Police Brutality Worldwide, and I think I'll come up because it's getting popular now. Mm-hmm. So I do live streams every week. I talk about issues. I bring guests in. I bring people to come in the chat and talk. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Boris Johnson has nothing to do. He won't do anything for Black British. He's just another cracker.
Okay. All right. David, go ahead, bro.
And me, I'm just David. You can find me on Instagram on Breath of Fresh Air 29. That's BREATHOFFRESHAIR 29 on Instagram. And if it's too long for you to keep up with, then you ain't smart enough to be following me. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm gonna rebrand this one day. Man. Like, oh, you said you were smart, bro. Like, nah, I'm stupid. But yeah, check me out on IG or subscribe to Dynast and throw Dynast the like in the super chat and all that.
I appreciate it, bro. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you go to Search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. Like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, family. Dynast Amir, Search for Uhuru. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.